All right, joining us now, Richmond, is John McGuire. John McGuire is a former Navy SEAL. He's got quite the story to tell. And John McGuire is running for the Republican nomination in the House of Delegates in District 56. This is basically a Republican area in Central Virginia, in the Richmond area. And Peter Farrell, who held that seat for some time, he's out. He's got other things going on, just had a baby, and he's focused on his job. So he is not running for re-election. So the seat is open. This is a Republican seat. Whoever wins the June 13th primary is likely going to be in the House of Delegates in the 2018 session. And there are a number of candidates. The filing isn't until the end of the day on March 31st, so we're not sure all the candidates are going to be there. But John McGuire announced his candidacy yesterday, and he is with us now. John, good to have you with us, man.
Hey, it's good to be here, John. Thanks for having me this morning.
John, you're a former Navy SEAL. You're a motivational speaker. You've got a training class. You make millions of dollars. The other day you told me that you'll go overseas and you'll make a motivational speech and you get paid $20,000 for an hour speech. Not bad. That's almost as good as Bill Clinton did. Why on earth, when you're making all this money and you're this successful and you're basically billing time, which means, if you don't have the time, you're not making millions of dollars, why on earth would you run for the House of Delegates at $18,000? Is basically you get paid under minimum wage. Why would you do that?
Well, it goes back into my DNA to serve, and think about all the men and women who serve. We don't do it for the money. We do it because we love our country and we love the American people. And it's just in my DNA to serve. And I served 10 years as a Navy SEAL, and it might sound all great, but I'll tell you, the men and women who serve in our military today, they do more in a year than I did in 10 years. But I do have a successful business, and my mission is to improve lives. I want to help teams and individuals reach their full potential, and that's what I've been doing, and it's great. And I think this is an opportunity. I think I heard you say something earlier about common sense. I think there's a war on common sense. And I've been sitting on the sidelines, like you said, impacting lives around the world, not for the money, but for the people and for our way of life. I want to get off the sidelines and fight this war on common sense.
Okay, so you want to be the common sense guy. You're running in what's going to be a pretty crowded primary, 3, maybe 4 other candidates. We'll know by the end of the week, obviously, when everybody's done with their filing. But what are some of the specific policies, John, that you want to enact as being a House member in what is most likely going to continue to be a Republican supermajority in the House?
Well, one thing I want to say is I think my diverse life experiences uniquely qualify me for this experience. I think I told you yesterday that I grew up in foster care. I went to 9 different elementary schools. And, in some of those foster homes, they would say things like, you're never going to amount to anything. But whenever I'm mentoring a young person or a not-so-young person, I say, don't let the world put limits on you. Don't put limits on yourself. We can all do more than we think, especially, we work as a team, things like that. And certainly being part of the General Assembly, it's all about teamwork. Nothing great has ever been done alone. After that, I went on to become a Navy SEAL. And, again, people are saying you're too small, you can never make it. So I train 3 hours a day. And usually 200 men start the training and 20 graduate. In our class, 19 graduated. I was number 4. And what you learn is when you fall down, you get back up. And when you fall down, you get back up. And as long as you never quit, you're always in the fight. So it's not what you look like, it's what you fight like. So I got to tell you, I'm very conservative. I was a sniper and sniper instructor, and I'm strong on the Second Amendment. I believe in developing an environment that's healthy for business growth. We are a capitalist society, and some of the decisions that are being made defy business logic. And I'm big time into public safety. Our children, the things that are going on. I was interviewing some mothers in the area, and they were from their kids, saying that some of the kids are getting sent home because the teachers think they're sick. But they're not really sick. They're having problems with drugs in our schools. And I'm just sitting back watching this. I raised 5 children in the area, and I think, like I said, my unique experiences can make a difference on that.
All right, let's talk about some of your specific policies, because as you get to 2018, we're going to have a new governor, Terry McAuliffe, term limited. So it's going to be one of, I guess there's 5 people running now. It's going to be one of those 5. And a couple of the issues that are going to come up immediately. Let's get to number one, Dominion power. Big issue for a lot of people. There is a group of House members and state senators led by Chap Peterson, Democrat, Northern Virginia, who doesn't think the Dominion rate deal that was brokered by Senator Frank Wagner in 2015 now makes any sense, because the Clean Power Act, which was driving it, and how much money that would cost Dominion, Trump administration has trashed that. That's gone. So there is no Clean Power Act. And a lot of people are saying that Dominion should come back to the table. We should renegotiate that deal because it was based on something that's not happening, and eventually people would get rebates. Those that don't favor it say, well, wait a minute. A deal is a deal. Rates are down. You're paying less money than you were, so everything is working. Why reopen something that's already been decided? Let's just let that play out. That is going to come up in 2018. How does John McGuire stand on that, and why?
Well, I think that we need to have an environment where it's, like I said, it's good for business, but we also got to take care of the little guy. And, I think if you have me on your show again in 2 weeks, as my team gets together, we'll give you more details on the policy. But one thing I learned in the military is, everyone is important. But, everyone doesn't get a trophy. It is a business, and we have to have competition.
There's also legislation to defelonize small possessions of marijuana. How do you stand on that, John?
Well, obviously I'm not a big fan of drugs. And understand that, it's a popular thing in pop culture around the country, and some people are into that around the country. But I'm not into that.
So you would not be in favor of changing the statutes as we have it now?
That is correct.
All right, what about medical marijuana? Do you think there's a place for that?
I'm not a doctor, and I understand that people that are suffering, they're suffering. So if it makes sense medically, and then obviously that's the policy we'll have to go with.
All right. Let me ask you about Medicaid expansion. So many of us had fought Medicaid expansion in Virginia for a long time based on the fact that we thought Obamacare was going to implode and didn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but now Obamacare seems to be the law of the land. That's what Paul Ryan said. Even the Republican replacement bill that continued to fund the states that did the Medicaid expansion, and basically in perpetuity, that was never going away. And so now you look at it and you say, okay, well, all the reasons that we had for not expanding Medicaid expansion, the positions that I personally took on it, which it didn't make any sense because Obamacare was going to implode, and when it went away, the funding wouldn't be there. Virginia would be on the hook. Now that's all taken off the table. The governor says, hey, I want to reconvene in April. I want to take the money because, look, everybody else is. How do you stand on that?
Well, I think that obviously everybody with a heart wants to help everybody. But you have to make sense. If you make $20, you can't spend $40. And from what I've heard is Medicaid has gone up every year in every budget. And at some point, it's not sustainable. So, we have to get together as a team and do what makes the most sense for our state, for our communities.
All right. John, I've got about 4 minutes. I want to get into your personal story, John McGuire, which you have a very compelling one. You told me on the phone, and I want to just start at the beginning, that you were 5 years old and your mother just abandoned you and dropped you off on a street corner in Richmond. Can you share in 5 minutes with our audience that your entire story it's tough to imagine as a 5-year-old just getting dropped off on the road and abandoned.
Yeah, I was found by the police. I ended up in foster care and several different foster homes. And again, I think it's where it started to develop my mental, emotional toughness. And, I decided then that when things aren't well, you can make a decision to go one way or the other. In fact, I had somebody tell me statistically I should be in jail because I guess a lot of children that are abandoned like that don't do so well. But in high school, I took karate. My sensei was a Green Beret in Vietnam. And back then, if you remember, they had the movie Top Gun and the motorcycles and the airplanes. And so I wanted to be a pilot. And he said, if they take your plane away, you're no good. But if you become a Green Beret, you are a weapon. And I said, no, I still want to fly. And then one day I saw a magazine called Gung Ho. It said, toughest men alive. You have a better chance of being president of the United States. And so I took that to my sensei, and I said, what about these guys? He said, they're a bunch of crazy mother. And he said, by the way, you're too small, and you could never make it. My whole life people have been trying to tell me what I can't do, but I just think that's what they can't do. And so, of course, I trained hard and made it through SEAL training, and I served South Central America. I served 10 years around the world, actually different places. And I got out and I started this business. I got a job with corporate America, and I noticed that my boss wouldn't look me in the eyes. He lacked confidence. He would tell me what to do all day, and I'd get done by 11, and he would have nothing else for me to do, so he lacked leadership. And the guy had he had a big gut. He was out of shape. So I was like, hey, Navy SEALs, I can help him with fitness. So that gave me the idea of developing a class that would help people become stronger, healthier, and more confident. And today we train people every day in 6 cities, and I'm doing executive leadership training with companies like Blackstone Group, Disney, or PricewaterhouseCoopers, or even just local companies, trying to help people believe in themselves and work as a team. So things are going well. I got a great company, and in October 2006, I broke my neck doing a backflip on a trampoline with my son. I kind of joked with some of my Navy buddies I might have been safer staying in the SEAL teams. The surgeon told my wife I would not make it through the night. He said if I did, I'd never use my arms and legs again. In fact, they put a pen in my hand, they squeezed it, and they signed away my house, my business, and everything. Of course, I wanted to punch him, but I was paralyzed, and I had a respirator. I figured in 2 weeks I'd be stronger and ready to go, and then 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks. Well, it took me about a year to walk normal. It took me about 3 years to turn the ignition in my car. But, last year I qualified for the obstacle course world championships, where you run up and down a mountain carrying 50-pound sandbag for 6 hours. And that same determination that helped me get through foster care, to get through the Navy SEALs, to overcome a life-changing injury, is the same determination I want to take into the District 56 House of Delegates.
Well, I tell you what, John McGuire, you have quite the compelling personal story, what you've done with your life and how you've got to the position you are now, and also what you've done for those trying to serve and get through Navy SEAL training. But I mean, it's hard to imagine, many of us with children just taking your 5-year-old and dropping them off on a street corner and driving away, and that's it. Just like hope things work out at 5 years old. 15, maybe 5, tough one. John, you've got a great story to tell.
I actually was doing a mission somewhere in South America, and I got a phone call on the satellite radio to come back to base, and the American Red Cross flew me back to Virginia. My grandparents, my grandfather was a World War II veteran, probably the toughest man I ever met. I tell you, that World War II generation, they don't make them like that anymore. Although I will say this generation is quite impressive, but those guys were tough. Anyway, my grandmother got me out of foster homes, and I went through high school with them. And my grandmother had passed away, and so I'm over here looking at the open casket, paying my respects. And this woman taps me on the arm and says, "Hey, John, how are you?" So I said, "I'm doing okay. Who are you?" And she goes, "I'm your mom." And then at the time, there was just zero emotions because I had no relationship. But looking back, she had problems with alcohol, things like that. And so did my father. And so 48 years old, I've got issues like every human being, but I've never tasted alcohol in my life. But I joke, I got strong carrying my buddies home.
I want to thank John McGuire for being with us. John, I'm sure between now and June 13th, we'll have you back several times, and maybe we'll have a debate when we find out who all the candidates are. John McGuire, thanks for being with us. Republican candidate, House District Race 56, Richmond. That'll be decided June 13th. Keep it right here. The John Fredericks Show, Trucking the Truth, live, Washington, D.C.